Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to today's grand finale. Before we move on, a big thank you to the people who have made this event possible. First and foremost, to our knowledge partners, the IIM Calcutta Innovation Park. They have been with us every step of the way, helping us conceptualize this event, put a structure to it, gave us some wonderful judges for all these rounds that we've had so far, and been a true partner in the sense that they have believed in this vision to have young children share their ideas of entrepreneurship. For that, a huge thank you to them. Also, we must thank our sponsors. We have BSNL as our gold sponsor, the Webel Fujisoft Dwara Center of Excellence, a center of excellence that's working at the cutting edge of technology, and Yogdhun, a content giant, both as our associate sponsors, and the SKC LNCT group of colleges as our prizes sponsor. We're also very privileged to have today a very, very special guest. We have spoken about entrepreneurship on this platform on numerous occasions. Mostly, we have had entrepreneurs be judges. In some cases, we've had them deliver masterclasses. Today, we have one of India's foremost entrepreneurs, Mr. Hemant Kanoria, as our chief guest. A pioneer in the field of infrastructure, Mr. Hemant Kanoria has reshaped India's infrastructure landscape with innovative ideas and a strong passion for excellence. He is a visionary who always offers simple solutions to complex problems. His contribution towards inclusive infrastructure development in the country has been non-parade. Many of his ideas were first of its kind and created new business sectors. He is the chairman of SHREI, which started its operations in 1989. The initiative marked the entry of private sector in the field of infrastructure, a domain hitherto restricted to the public sector. Over the last 3 decades, SHREI has developed into one of India's largest holistic infrastructure and equipment financing institutions, which has about more than 1 lakh infrastructure players and construction companies as customers span India, who have created employment for more than 10 crore people directly and indirectly. He also pioneered the new wave of rural entrepreneurship in India. A unique business model was created to bridge the urban-rural digital divide and make services like e-governance, e-commerce, and e-learning accessible to millions in remote geographies. The initiative has opened up revenue opportunities for thousands of village-level entrepreneurs, or VLEs, who are providing these services through IT-enabled common service centers across India. He has held several prestigious positions, like the Vice President of the All India Management Association, the President of Calcutta Chamber of Commerce, Chairman of the FICCI National Committee on Infrastructure. He has also been a member of the Regional Direct Taxes Advisory Committee for the Government of India. He's also served on the Board of Governors of the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, and as a board member in the Indian Institute of Information Technology, Guwahati, and the New Delhi Institute of Management and Newta University. He is currently serving as a member of the Advisory Council at the US-India Business Council. He is a member of the India-Russia CEOs Council and India-Singapore CEOs Forum. He is also a G20 Advisory Council member at the International Chamber of Commerce. Sir, we are indeed privileged to have you here. Thank you so much for sparing the time for our event today. To welcome Mr. Kanoria and everybody here to this particular gathering, I would now request Achin Bhattacharya, the founder and CEO of Notebook, to deliver the welcome address. Achin is a chartered accountant by training. He was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI, a member of CPA Australia, and also CPA Ireland. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin, we have quite a gathering to welcome today, so over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome all of you to today's session. And my best wishes for Independence Day. So really today, as we all celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, 75th year of India's independence, we couldn't have a better day for our finals. And today when we celebrate this day, and we really look at the sacrifices that so many of our fellow countrymen through generations for building this nation. So we had an entire generations who fought for India's independence. And then, of course, so many of our fellow countrymen. And today, whatever we see around them, so there was an entire generation who started in rebuilding a new nation. So be it the dams, the bridges, the steel plants, be it Green Revolution. And then again, you know, as a country, as a nation, as we matured from infancy and took our steps towards being a young nation, the entire rejuvenation of the service sector and the way the entire world stood up and took note of India. And we graduated. We graduated from a nation, wherein people looked up to us in terms of cost arbitrage, to a nation who people look up to in terms of quality and its positioning in the value chain. So I think as a nation, we have come a long way. But then again, today, when I meet future leaders in this very platform, and when we get to see so many of them with such wonderful talents, we really feel so confident that our future is in safe hands. And we understand that we are only going to grow from strength to strength. So I welcome all of you to this wonderful event today. And I'm sure that we are up for some very exciting times. We're also very fortunate to have Mr. Hemant Kanoria amongst us, as Shubhavi mentioned, one of India's leading entrepreneurs. And personally, I've always been so much motivated by Hemantji with what he has achieved. And I think it's really a privilege to be able to welcome him to this forum. I'm sure that all of us will get to learn a lot from his experience. And the entire purpose of Notebook Ignite, when we discuss about entrepreneurship, when we discuss about encouraging young entrepreneurs, we really want to ensure that stalwart like Hemantji, what he shares, I'm sure that enthusiasm, that inspiration is going to be infectious, and it's really going to help. So I think we all of us, and I think now we eagerly look forward to hear from Hemantji and then take the session forward. Over to you, Shubhai.
Thank you so much, Asin. Mr. Kanoria, thank you so much for sparing the time for our event today. It is a privilege and a pleasure to have you here. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And it is indeed a pleasure for me to be here at this particular forum today. And thank you for inviting me to this occasion. Very happy Independence Day to all of you as we celebrate our freedom and the 75th year. I think that we have achieved a lot as a country and we have come a long, long way. But I think that we have still a long way to go. And especially where entrepreneurship is concerned. And, as someone was just mentioning, that when the independence happened and when we got the mantle of the country, we did not have very many entrepreneurs. There were very few entrepreneurs. But if we see in the last 7 decades, the way entrepreneurship has developed in our country, it is just remarkable. People have built up businesses to scale, built up businesses which are basically comparable to anywhere in the world. The capability and the competency that our country has built up is something which is amazing. So congratulations to all the entrepreneurs, to all the people who have participated in building up these great institutions in India, which can compare to anyone in the world. Friends, last 18 months has been traumatic for very many people and has also been a great learning for very many people. I will put myself into the latter because I think it has been a great learning because we had never imagined, especially in the last 1 century, we have not seen the kind of pandemic, and none of us, neither our fathers or even, I don't recall my grandfather seeing this kind of a pandemic because in the last 100 years, this is happening for the first time. So all of us, we were just shaken up. Many of us, we did not know what to do. Many of us, we were scared first and we were all locked down in our houses. And it was not only an event which was happening in India, an incident which was happening in India, it was a global incident. So therefore this pandemic had affected everyone and people just did not know. It was an invisible virus and the kind of traumatic experience which everyone had was absolutely unimaginable. So I think that, if we just reflect back and see that last 18 months, we have seen from times when everything was locked down to things gradually opening up. There was the first wave which was there, then there was second wave which was more virulent and people got really scared and many people died. So we have lost a lot of our colleagues, we have lost a lot of our friends, we have lost our family members, and we have lost citizens in our country and outside also. But still, life, it is the amazing thing about life, it just keeps on moving on. So therefore, we've forgotten many of the incidents. We have become careful. And if you actually look at it, what was it which helped us to be in a position to come back in a very resilient manner? It was one, where our lives was concerned, our own immunity. We all had to take a step back and concentrate on our own bodies, on our own health, on our fitness regimes, on our food, on medicines, whatever we needed to take, because we knew that this virus, when it affects, we do not know how fatal it could be. So therefore, everyone had to look inwards and focus on improving their own immune system, because that was the only way that we could live through it. And most of the population all over the world has been able to withstand this kind of pressure of the virus only because they've been able to improve their own immune systems. If you look back, that what we were 18 months back and what we are today, I think that we are all more aware about our health. We are healthier people as we were than 18 months back. So that's been a learning for our health. Where the livelihoods, businesses, work is concerned, we were all used to be going to our offices and thinking that, if you don't go to our office, we cannot work. If we have to go to our workplace, and that was the only way that we could work. There were some companies which were in the technology space where people were working out of their homes also, or wherever other places they could be, but work from anywhere was not introduced at such a large scale, which has happened now. So now the new normal has become that, you have to work. Output is more important, and from where you are working from is not that important. So many of the companies have introduced policies of working from anywhere, not only working from your home, but working from anywhere, because whatever is more convenient to a person. So a person can be working out of a hotel, he could be working out of a cafe, he could be working out of a hospital, working out of his home, wherever it could be. So it is work from anywhere, which we had never imagined that 18 months back it would be happening. So therefore, that has also helped in reducing the cost. The third part, I think, that which has been a great learning has also been on the technology. That sometimes I shudder to think that 100 years back, when this pandemic had happened, people were not connected. The telephones were not there. People were not connected through the technology platform. They could not reach out to people. So therefore, people would have all got isolated, living on islands almost, or being locked down in their houses without any communication. So at least with technology, what has happened, we have seen that we have all remained connected. So therefore, this world, and especially, is very different than what we had seen earlier. Especially even in our lifetime, we have seen the kind of dramatic changes which has happened because of technology and because of the evolution which has been brought by mankind into both the lives and the way that we work, and the businesses also. Many of the businesses which were the old time businesses have closed down. And many of you know about the examples of Kodak and so many other companies who were not able to gear up to becoming more contemporary than what was required. So therefore, they have faced extinctions and they're over and out today. So I think that we live in a world which is very different. 18 months has dramatically changed the way that we had our perspective to life, our perspective to work, our perspective to the opportunities which are there in the businesses. So therefore, everything has gone through a dramatic change. And many of the companies have done extremely well in the last 18 months, in spite of the fact that there has been recession in many of the places, the way the businesses have come down, economies have got affected, the governments have also come forward to extend their supporting hand. And I think overall, if you look at it, there has been a change, but the change is always for good. Resilience is something which is very important and which needs to be incorporated and imbued in our lives. And if we are able to do, and if we are able to be more resilient and more flexible in things, then we are in a position to take things in our stride and not get overwhelmed. Many people have got overwhelmed with whatever has happened with the the pandemic, they've gone into this. So the other side of it, the darker side of it is that where people have not learned, they've gone into depressions because they have been at their homes, they've been locked down, their businesses have got affected, their livelihoods got affected, people have lost jobs. So that is a darker side of this pandemic. But the brighter side, and I would always urge everyone to look at the brighter side. There is both the day and the night. So therefore, after every night, there is a day. The sun will always come out. And so therefore, if we look at the positive side of it and the learnings that we have had from this pandemic will help us to move forward much faster. So I think that, adversities are something which is a part of life. How we are in a position to find out opportunities within those adversities is the way that we look at it and the perspective that as humans, we have the gift of God to be able to look at it. Many of the species may not be endowed with this kind of grace by God, that, they can look at, in spite of adversities, they can look at opportunities inside the adversities. But humans have been given that perspective to do so. So we should not lose out on this opportunity and to look through any kind of opportunity in the adversities. I'll just share my experience, and I think that all of you today are looking at opportunities. You're young, you have a long, long way to go in your journey in life. And therefore, if you embrace entrepreneurship, whether you are working or you're not working, I think entrepreneurship is not something which is only related to the businesses that you do. Many people think that entrepreneurship is only required if you are doing your own business, but that's not entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is not limited to your own business. Entrepreneurship is much beyond your business. Entrepreneurship is what you do in everyday life. Small things. If you're an artist, it requires entrepreneurship. If you're a sculptor, you require entrepreneurship to be there. If you are working in an organization and if you work as if you own the organization, if you work as an entrepreneur in an organization, if you're a professional and if you work as an entrepreneur, I think that is very much important. So therefore, entrepreneurship is something which everyone needs to adopt and embrace. And if you are able to do that in your life, you will find that you are more resilient. Because what does an entrepreneur look for? Entrepreneur is always in a position to find out within any kind of negativity, the positive side of it. And that is the entrepreneur. An entrepreneur always is passionate about whatever they do. The entrepreneur always is totally dedicated to the work which the entrepreneur undertakes. So therefore, is it limited to only your own enterprise or your own business? No, it is applicable to whatever you do in life. So therefore, when you study about entrepreneurship or when you engage in any kind of even any kind of engagement which is there of entrepreneurship, it requires you to understand that you need to be passionate. You need to basically be engaged in whatever you do. You must take the responsibility of the ownership of whatever you are doing, and that is true entrepreneurship. Many of you are now starting off businesses, and you have seen that young people have started off businesses, and especially in the technology field, and they've done exceedingly well, because technology is a platform which gives you an opportunity to scale up tremendously and scale up very fast, because there are no boundaries, there are no physical boundaries. It is all limited to your own thinking and what you carve out for yourself. So I think that is important in entrepreneurship, which you have to remember. And also you have to see that with technology, you can really scale up, but you have to do the right things, which is very important. I'll share some of my experience, because as an entrepreneur, I have been in business for almost about 43 years now. I started quite young at the age of 17, and I have looked at various businesses. My family was in the flour milling business, so I looked at the flour milling business. We had cigarette filter plants. We had the leasing and hire purchase company. After that, it graduated to the equipment financing and the infrastructure projects. At the same financing, At the same time, we are engaged in many other businesses and activities. But I would say that, one thing which you must remember, that if you fail in any kind of an activity, or if you fail, whether it is in business, don't give up. Because from that failure, you could learn that what are the things and what are the mistakes that you made. And the mistakes which you have made, life is long enough to give you an opportunity to rectify those mistakes and move on. Don't get into a depression that if I failed in a particular area, if I failed in a business, so therefore that means it is the end of everything. It is not the end of everything. And it is not that if you do not have resources by way of money, that also is going to be a constraint if you want to start your business. For business, you require to have dedication, hard work, passion, identifying an area where you get enjoyment, and then you need to pursue, but you have to do it in a logical manner. So entrepreneurship is both an art and science. So art from the perspective of what you like to do and where you think that there could be an opportunity. Science from the perspective of assessing the customer need, the customer demand, because if you make a product, you have to understand that what is the customer wanting. Are you making a product or offering a service which is relevant for the customer or not? And that is something which is very important, because in any enterprise, or if you embark on any kind of an entrepreneurship venture, you need to assess the customer demand very well. And that does not mean that you need to go through a large, you have to engage by getting large consultants, because initially you may not be in a position to afford it. So therefore, if you're starting, you have to do some study, which is basically going to offer you the opportunity to assess properly that what exactly does the customer want from the perspective of the product or service. And then you design something of that kind. So therefore, that is important to make an assessment of the customer. In business, I've seen in 43 years, we have gone through many challenging times. Many of the businesses have seen challenging times. Many of the businesses have come to a brink of closure. And some of the businesses we had to close down because we thought that it was no more relevant, or the way that we were doing that particular business was not relevant. So therefore, it would go into extinction. So it is better to take that voluntary call and close it. So it is also important to understand that when you should be exiting, because in any business, in anything that you do in life, exits are also important. Because if you do not know when it's like getting caught up somewhere, and if you do not know that there's a door there, you don't want to get caught up in a room even, because you know that if there is no door and if you need to escape, how would you do that? So similarly in businesses also, you need to carve out an exit route whenever you want to. The exit may be through, if there is a failure, you can exit, or if you find that you have come to a level of saturation, then you can exit. So there are various ways of examining and getting into businesses and entrepreneur. But one very critical factor of success in business is resilience, flexibility, proper assessment of the customer demand. Because if you are continuously doing that and molding yourself to the demand of the customer and tweaking around your business model, then you will always be contemporary and relevant to that particular business. And this is what I can share with you of the 43 years of experience that I have had in businesses, in various businesses, from infrastructure to retail. As as I was introduced, that we have also started a business in the rural areas, which has been there for the last 13 years. But we have to remold it many times, chisel it, tweak it around, and still I would say that we have now come to a level where we think that we are able to understand the customer demand in the villages and to be in a position to fulfill it, which we are doing through large number, almost about 148,000 village level entrepreneurs are our partners who work along with us on this particular scheme. But it is quite ambitious and we hope that we'll be successful. But it is a long and arduous path that you have to take to make it successful. It is not very easy. So that is the biggest advantage of life, and especially of businesses, that in business, it is almost like an adventure. So it's the thrill of getting into that particular business, of embarking on it and taking that journey of adventure. You may be crossing various rivers and oceans and mountains. So therefore, this is basically what is going to be the key determinant for a person to enjoy that voyage, the journey of the thrill of the entrepreneurship and of any business that you embark on. But please do not limit your entrepreneurship capabilities or skills to only starting your own enterprise or your own business. But wherever you work, bring in that entrepreneurship streak out of you and make that manifest in whatever area that you are working in, because it will give you a huge amount of thrill and delight. It will make you happy, because if you bring out those entrepreneur skill sets, which is passion, which is basically dedication, hard work, and enjoying what you do. So that is what I would like to tell all of you today. And this is my message to all of you, that embark on this journey of entrepreneurship, and you will not be disappointed with it, because I have not been disappointed for the last 4 decades that I have been involved in this particular business. Thank you once again for this opportunity, and thank you for interacting with all of you on a Sunday, 15th of August, a very, very auspicious day, because we got our freedom on this particular day, and there's nothing more cherished than freedom to all of us. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kanoria, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for sparing your time and inspiring all these young students here. As you can see, there are about 960 people who listen to you speak, and I'm sure they are all as thrilled and inspired as I am feeling right now. I would now like to invite Dr. Mukhopadhyay. Sir, I can see that some of the people have a few questions for Mr. Kanoria. If you could please help moderate those.
Yes.
Thank you.
I want to tell from my side, on behalf of Notebook and on a personal behalf, I want to welcome and thank Sri Hemant Kanoria ji for coming today on a holiday. He has agreed to come, and that too, all of you should have noted that he came 5 minutes before the schedule. Most of us, sometimes we come late, but that's a great learning for us that he, in spite of that. And I would like to, though there was an official introduction to him, but I would like to, because having worked with him for more than 5 years, I would like to point out some of the traits which I have noticed, which I think all of you youngsters will find it very beneficial. One of it is that he's very, very hardworking. And like we will go for a Chamber of Commerce meeting and then come back at 5:30 and work till 8:30. That is one thing. Second thing, always full of ideas. Most of us read newspapers, but Mr. Kanoria will read an article, and from there he'll get an idea. That is amazing. Third thing is that, like there was a time, like, he started off, as he told me one day, that he started off only with few lakh rupees. So it was a small company. So no banker was initially willing maybe to, start financing. But Mr. Kanoria later on put almost all the bankers into the thing. He got the multilateral institutions like DG of Germany, FM of Netherlands, IFC Washington to come in. That's a very, very big thing. And, the other thing was to diversification the right time, from leasing hire purchase to infrastructure finance. And what Mr. Kanoria did not say, which I was very impressed, which I'm very impressed, is that, 40 years back he started. But now, since technology is such a big thing, he has been able to guide the group into getting into Vara Technology and Vara Infobit. And all of you should actually come and visit this Center of Excellence, which Mr. Kanoria has, influenced and created. It does 3D printing and does excellent classes in IoT, data science. It is extremely good with the help of Webel, and Futuresoft have done it. So I think to move with the times, that's a great thing that we learned from Mr. Kanoria. So, sir, first question that I want to, which you want to learn from you, that initially, these entrepreneurs will always have negative cash flows, first few months, first few years. So, sir, if you can tell us, how not to get demotivated and how to actually manage those periods of negative cash flows for a few months or few years, if you can tell us, sir, that.
See, I think that, Jayanto, you have been very kind with your words to me. So thank you very much for that. I don't deserve it, but thank you so much. and you always like to hear good things about oneself. So thanks for that. But the point which you mentioned, that there would be negative cash flows in the beginning. You see that when you start your business, you are embarking on a journey. It is like going, on an expedition, climbing Mount Everest, okay, wanting to go to Mount Everest. So therefore, you do not know on your expedition what would be the topography of the mountain, where you will be having the valleys, where it will be flat land, where you would be getting some certain rocky areas. So therefore, you have to be prepared for that. But the thrill of reaching Mount Everest and climbing that is something which is unimaginable and inexplicable. So I think that is the reason why people go on to that particular, for the expedition. Similarly, in businesses also, when you embark on the entrepreneurship journey, it is like an adventure. So you have to treat it as an adventure. Some people go with a lot of money. They may make more money or they may lose it. But when you go on an adventure, if you get so caught up with the objective that you have to make more money, you have to make more money, because if you're invested, so let's suppose that if you have borrowed money, then you have to be more careful about how you spend, because you have to return back the money. But if you're taking your own capital, if you take your own capital, then you earmark a certain portion for the experimentation, because there is no guarantee. And if someone is embarking on something which is very new, then there is no guarantee that you would be successful. So you have to be prepared to that. If you are unsuccessful, what do you do? So therefore, the exit routes need to be planned right upfront. And therefore, then you do not get despondent about things if it has not happened in the way that you expected it to happen.
Sir, Harshit Lalwani is asking you, how can an entrepreneur bring change in attitude of people? Because sir, basically, when you are an entrepreneur, you'll be very, very motivated, but you have a team, who may not be thinking and be as motivated like you. So how do you bring that, make them equally motivated like the entrepreneur himself?
So you have to first of all find out that what beer do you drink or what wine do you have, which makes you excited. And that is the same thing that you have to administer to your colleagues. So let us suppose, just jokes apart. So basically, if you see that there's something which has kept you motivated, so therefore that is what you have to share with your colleagues on an ongoing basis. Because, and if some team members feel that it is not exciting for them to be on that journey, so it is better to let them go and get people on board who are going to be excited like you. But the leader or the entrepreneur who has taken the lead for the business has to, as a leader, be in a position to motivate, excite their colleagues on an ongoing basis. And that has to have the primemost importance in conducting the business. Because many times what happens is that as entrepreneurs, we get so caught up with doing things ourselves that we forget that our colleagues have to be equally motivated. They have to be equally excited. So we are not in a position to make that excitement all pervasive.
Right.
And therefore, we may be finding, I'm not saying that it will happen 100%, but at least if you are able to have 75 to 80% people as excited as the leader is, then your job is done.
Sir, Vaibhav Singh is asking, you have mentioned, but again, if you can reiterate, what are the most important qualities of an entrepreneur?
The first thing is having confidence in yourself, being resilient, flexible, because if you go with very adamant views on certain things, if you're not observant, if you're not seeing that what are the changes which are happening, and you close your eyes to it, thinking that, being adamant that this is what I have decided and this is what something will be good for everyone. And what is very important as an entrepreneur, always to make an assessment of the customer, that who is my customer, whether my customer is happy or not. Because the businesses usually fail because, we are, as entrepreneurs, we are not doctors. If you go to a doctor, the doctor will give you a medicine and say you better take it. And if you don't take it, if you go back to the doctor will chastise you for that and say that if you have not got well, I can't do anything about it. But as an entrepreneur, as in business, if you go to the customer and we tell them that you better take it, the customer may reject it and the customer will not accept you again. So you have to understand what the customer wants and accordingly design your product or services, which is going to take care of the customer's need. And the customer need with aspirations is going to change on a daily basis. So you have to keep abreast with that. And that is the key to success.
Sir, one more thing, sir, I have seen, because I was there in the formative stages of Shrey, that you could actually attract people from State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda. I mean, the organization is better. So Notebook, sir, I am also asking on behalf of Notebook. Notebook is also in that stage right now, where they need to actually get people, very good people, and retain them. So if you can tell us, sir, how to get very good people and retain them, sir. That is a very important thing.
I think that it is not that difficult. It is quite simple that if you have identified that who are the people that you need. So the leaders, the business people, the entrepreneurs who are spearheading a particular business, they have to understand that what kind of people do they need. And accordingly, if you approach them and make them excited, the people will be in a position to join. You have to make them excited. You have to be transparent and honest with them. And you have to basically understand that either, many times what happens is entrepreneurs, we start thinking that we know everything. As a leader, we think that we know everything. I think the first thing that the leader should know is what he or she does not know. Because if you know what you do not know, then you will be able to attract talent accordingly. Because otherwise, let's suppose that you get the best banker and then you are advising him how to run banking. And if you are in a banking business, if you are in a manufacturing business and you get the best guy who's an engineer, and then after that you advise him that because I'm the boss, so I'm advising you what to be done. So therefore it will not work out. So as an entrepreneur, as a leader, assessment of your own strengths and weaknesses, the first thing that you should do. And then you know that what are the gaps which are there. Accordingly, then you bring in people to fill in those gaps.
Very nice. Very nice. Sir, I think we're very happy to know that, like normally when a session starts, we have a lot of people, but it drops down. In your case, sir, we are racing towards 1,000 number here. It has remained nearly 1,000. And there's again a Facebook Live where we have more people.
Thank you.
So Naira Alam is asking you, sir, that sir, if you could kindly tell what are the challenges you had faced and how did you overcome them at the beginning of your journey? Now you're a very big man, but initially, how did you overcome those challenges?
No, I can only share my personal experience that you see the challenges which I faced at that particular time is relatively less than the challenges that you face when the organization becomes larger and bigger and more successful. It's like, when you go on to the expedition for the Mount Everest and you want to reach there, as you keep on climbing up, the oxygen levels fall. It gets more and more difficult. Initial days, it is easier. But when you are reaching the height, when you are going to just reach your destination, so that time the walk becomes more difficult, the trek becomes more difficult. So similarly in life also, many times we think that when the organization is small, you have a lot of problems. When it becomes bigger, then the problems reduces. The problems will keep on increasing. It is the way that we deal with the problems. What happens when the problem for larger organizations, the problems are manifold and the magnitude of the problem is also very large. But as an organization that you have learned to live with those problems and those problems do not undermine you in spite of the fact that the problems are very large compared to when you started your journey. So when you have come to almost the top of the mountain, when you're climbing Mount Everest, you will find that the oxygen level falls and it dramatically falls. But the body is in a position to take it because it has got acclimatized to be in a position to climb in spite of the fact that the oxygen levels are lower. So similarly in businesses.
Sir, one more thing is that you had told me, and you can share this initially when Shrey was small, like even UTI Bank would say you grow up and then you come. State Bank would say you grow up and then come. So when you had to hear this no's from many people, how did you, handle those disappointments of hearing no from those people actually?
I would not say that there's a disappointment in handling these no's. It is basically an expectation that there would be a no.
Okay.
So if you go with an expectation that there would be a no, and someone says yes, then be grateful about it.
Okay.
And not get despondent when a person is telling no, because you know, you go with the knowledge that the person would say no. Because how would anyone want to just put in money into a fledgling organization? So therefore, if the person is doing it, that means that you have been able to convince him about, you have been a good marketing person to be able to convince him to put in some money. So I think that you should not get disappointed with no's, but you should appreciate the yes that you get in your journey.
Right, right. So Arjun Singh is asking that, sir, he wants to start a business, but he is a student and he may have limited resources. So how does he go on taking the first few steps?
I think basically what is very important is the resources are never limited. One understanding which everyone should have is that there is no limited resources. Everyone has unlimited resources. Depending upon the way that you are able to expand the spectrum that is available to you. So therefore, one, from the perspective of your own energy level, your own thoughts, you're reaching out to people. So therefore, if you have a good idea, there would be many people who would come in. Initially, as I said, that you should not be expecting that people are going to, that you are the Pied Piper or Hamlin and everyone is going to follow you. It is not going to happen. You have to be in a position to convince people. And as I said, that please, if you start taking no as not a disappointment, then you have won 90% of the battle.
Yeah, that's a very good advice. Because most people are very quickly disappointed. Sir, Samvardhan is asking you, sir, that some students are not very strong in mathematics and numerical skill. So can he still have a bright future in the business world?
No, always. I think that, I would very humbly put it here that I'm not an MBA, I'm not a chartered accountant, but I'm running a finance company. And I've been the chairman of a finance company, which we have been able to. So as I said, that, you must know that what you don't know. I knew that I'm not a banker. I knew I'm not a chartered accountant. I knew that I'm not an MBA. So therefore you hire the best people, get them as your colleagues, respect them, empower them, and make them work as entrepreneurs. So therefore, in our whole group, the philosophy has been of professional entrepreneurship. So all the professionals that we have in our group and our teams, they are all entrepreneurs. They think like entrepreneurs. They've been empowered. They are owners. They feel the ownership in them. And they have been basically, and we trust them. We respect them because we know that they are the key. They are the key for making the business successful.
Thank you, sir. And Shadya Shaw is asking a very practical question. Sir, if people around you want to start a business, but people around you, your parents or your relatives are not having confidence that you can be a good entrepreneur, then how can you go about it?
No, but I think that the first thing in entrepreneurship is that you have to have confidence in yourself. And then after that, if some people may not want to promote you or may not give you money, but if you don't want to give up, then don't give up. If you want to give up, so everything is with us. If we are able to build on ourselves, if we have confidence on ourselves, then no one can bring us down. No one can disappoint us, because as I said, that no disappointment is disappointment, because you are, as it is presuming that all the people are not going to be supporting you. So when you presume that people are not going to be supporting you, so how are you going to get disappointed? It's just the mindset. It's just the perspective that with which you are looking at things.
Yes, sir. I think you also mentioned very nicely that you have to remain an optimist, that, after night is a day. So I think you mentioned that, sir, very, very nicely.
And never to give up. In school, I read this, Hum Honge Kamyab, that song which is there. So just keep that song is reverberating in your brains always.
Right. So, answer like this technology is a huge thing is happening. Like before, there is 4G and now 5G and fintech and, like a blockchain. So how does one keep pace with this massive change is happening?
No, I think that, see, basically the changes in technology will happen. It depends. Some businesses will require a lot of technology to be introduced in their businesses. Some businesses do not require that kind of technology. So each business will be different. And if the business requires a lot of technology understanding, and if you do not have that, then you need to get the right kind of team who have that knowledge. Because if they do not, if no one has the knowledge, then you should not be in that particular business where the technology development can dramatically change the way that the business happens.
Right. So one, I think there are too many questions, but we will have to, for today, one last question, sir, that basically, if you can kindly elaborate, sir, you mentioned that, you did not do an elaborate, if you have an idea, you did not have a consultant and do an elaborate survey. How does an entrepreneur know that, there will be enough demand for his product and can scale up the business?
It is experimentation. You see that basically either you have, let's suppose an entrepreneur, it depends upon the budget. An entrepreneur can start with zero. An entrepreneur can start with 1 lakh of rupees, can start with 1 crore of rupees, can start with 100 crore, can start with 1,000 crore, 10,000 crore. So if you are starting with a 10,000 crore, then you can hire consultants, you can hire everyone, because if you make a mistake and then you can lose 10,000 crore. But if you start with 1 lakh of rupees, what do you lose? If you lose 1 lakh of rupees, or if you lose 10,000 rupees, and so don't put all your savings in that. So if you think that you can afford to lose 10,000 rupees, embark on it and see how it goes on. As I said, that it's an adventure. Don't just make it a misadventure. So therefore, in an adventure, you have to keep on learning. But it is a journey. Unless you embark on the journey, you cannot enjoy the adventure. You can't be sitting in your room, looking at the television or the computer screen and enjoying the adventure. For the adventure, if you want to have an adventure in the forest, you have to get into the forest. If you want to have the adventure of swimming in the ocean, you have to get into the pool, into the ocean. You can't be sitting in a room and doing it. So therefore, it is an adventure. Depending upon what you can afford to lose, you have to be intelligent enough not to put all the money into the new business that you're embarking on. Put a certain percentage and then experiment with it.
So I think for all the people, 1,000 plus people who are listening, I think, so to summarize, I think Mr. Kanoria said that we need to be an optimist, which is both an art and science. And we should embark on the adventure rather than thinking that I'll fail. And I think, sir, the great thing you told us is that the no's will come. Some people are going to tell you no, they may not participate in your dream. But I think that's a great learning, which is the Bhagavad Gita also tells, like keeping sorrow and, happiness at the same peg. So that's what you're saying, almost what the Bhagavad Gita is saying, that to take on disappointments and, you'll always have joys. But I think, sir, you have basically a very God-gifted 7th sense. We have sixth sense, but you have 7th sense, and, you have this, knack of, spotting business opportunities. So we'll also, sir, from Notebook side and from from my personal behalf, we'll want your, the Kanoria Foundation and Srey to grow even bigger, getting into near areas, because you have made Calcutta very proud. In my classes, I always say that Mr. Hemant Kanoria is the, Reliance of Eastern India. So you have really made us very proud from the Eastern India. So we'll all wish you very, very good luck and, very, very success in the years to come. So from my side, I will hand it over now to Shubhayu. Shubhayu, 1 second, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Mukhopadhyay, thank you for taking care of that moderation. And Mr. Kanoria, I cannot thank you enough for sparing so much of your time for the event today. The young students aside, I myself, as the co-founder of Notebook, I'm absolutely thrilled to have listened to you today.
Thank you. It is my pleasure. And I wish all of you all the best. Stay safe, stay healthy, and be excited with entrepreneurship and whatever you do in your life. So all of you should be very, very excited about whatever you do. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
No, sir. It was our pleasure. It was our pleasure.
Thank you.
The privilege is entirely ours, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Hemant Kanoria, chief guest today, and what a fantastic session that was. But we still have a grand finale to conduct. 12 schools eagerly waiting in the wings to see what the order is. Before I can tell you the order of the day, I will quickly introduce the four wonderful judges that we have with us today. We have with us Mr. Philip Barrett, who retired as a deputy headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Barrett served the Doon School as housemaster, head of department, dean of student welfare, dean of activities, deputy headmaster, second master, and acting headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Barrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist. And we at Notebook are privileged to have him as our senior advisor. So thank you so much for being a judge here today.
Thank you very much, Subayu, for that introduction.
Thank you, sir. We also have with us Mr. Shubhranshu Sanyal, a startup evangelist and an experienced management professional with a focus on entrepreneurship and innovation. Mr. Sanyal is the Chief Executive Officer of the IIM CIP. So first of all, a huge thank you from our side for being our knowledge partner on this wonderful journey. He is actively engaged with the key stakeholders in the entrepreneurship domain, that is government, academia, corporate, and investors, and involved in creating a strong enabling ecosystem for the startups with a special focus on East and Northeast India. Also responsible for the incubation activities like sourcing, mentoring, capacity building, and funding of the startups. He is skilled in innovation management, business process reengineering, and program management, and has implemented experience in multiple geographies. He comes from a strong consulting background with a doctorate in philosophy that is a PhD from the National Law University, a PGDM from IIM Calcutta, and a BE in mechanical engineering. So once again, thank you so much for being a part of this entire journey. And thank you so much for being a judge here today. We also have with us Mr. Amit Anthony Alex, whose professional experience is in impact investing, grant management, enterprise development, strategic consulting, project development and management, marketing, and business development, with a focus on the social and development sector. Amit has been an enterprise development manager with the Global Alliance for Clean Cookstoves, which is part of the United Nations Foundation, and was until very recently the India country director at Upaya Social Ventures. Amit, thank you so much for being here today and being a judge at this wonderful event.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine.
Thank you. We also have with us Mr. Sandro Stephen, who's an entrepreneur at heart. He started his career as a sales executive back in 2005. Having worked with brands like Max New York Life Insurance, Airtel, and Peterson's Travel Services, he's always been keen to explore his entrepreneurial side in a quest to build something credible. It was then that he started on his own startup journey by establishing Dossier Placement, an HR recruitment and SaaS company, serving global clients such as Target, Standard Chartered Bank, and many others. Since then, he's moved on from entrepreneurship to developing entrepreneurship around the country. At present, he's the region head of North India operations for the Indian Angels Network, India's largest network of angel investors. Well, once again, a big thank you to all the four wonderful judges we have. Now, we have a lot to do. We've had 12 finalists, and we wanted to figure out who would come first, who would go second, etc. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen and do a live lucky draw, right? Where we will have the 12 teams finding their slots. I hope the bowl is seen on the top left of the screen. So in this digital bowl, we've already written down 12 teams' names and dropped them in. We will do a draw of lots. First, we'll do a test draw so that we can see how the system works. After that, we'll do a real draw where we'll determine in what order would the 12 finalist schools come up today, right? As of now, this is a test draw. So this is how we do it. In the test draw, the first name that came out was the Vantage Hall Girls Residential School, then the Bhavan Sar Keshada Vidya Mandir, an Indian language school from Lagos, Nigeria, Sri Shikshatan School from Kolkata, the Sanjay Ghodawat International School, the Air Force School, Subrata Park, New Delhi, the Sri Satya Sai Vidya Vihar from Indore, Maharana Mewar Public School from Udaipur, the Greenland Public School, the Global Indian International School, Singapore, the CRPF Public School, and finally, the Assam Valley School, right? This was a test draw. Now it's time for the real draw. We will refill the bowl, and here we go. The team going first, Maharana Mewar Public School from Udaipur, Rajasthan. The second team, the Air Force School, Subrata Park, New Delhi. The third school, Bhavan Sahib Ki Shada Vidya Mandir from Raipur, Chhattisgarh. Followed by the Indian Language School from Lagos, Nigeria. Then we have Sri Satya Sai Vidya Vihar from Indore. Then the Greenland Public School from Lucknow. The Sanjay Ghodawat International School in the 7th spot from Kolhapur, Maharashtra. Shri Shikshatan School coming in at the 8th spot to present their idea from Kolkata. The Vantage Hall Residential Girls, the Vantage Hall Girls Residential School from Dehradun, Uttarakhand comes next, followed by the Assam Valley School, Balipada, Assam, followed by the Global Indian International School from Singapore, the CRPF Public School from New Delhi at the 12th stop. That's the order in which we will go. We will not take any more time. I would request the first school, the Maharana Mewar Public School team, to please get ready. If the students could please switch on their cameras from the Maharana Mewar Public School. So, you know the rules. You will have 5 minutes to present, followed by a Q&A with the judges. I would request the judges, in the interest of time, to keep the questions as brief and objective as possible. We will have time for detailed inputs at the end of the sessions, right? Before we start, the team, could you please introduce yourselves?
Greetings to everyone. Myself, Nehal Kothari of class 10th from Maharana Mewar Public School.
Greetings to everyone. I'm Kriti Vyas from class 10th, Maharana Mewar Public School.
Good evening, everyone. I am Samyak Mehta from MMPS, Udaipur.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shreyanshi Rathod from class 8.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Avi Mehta, class 10th, Maharana Mewar Public School, Udaipur.
Great. So that's the team from Maharana Mewar Public School, Udaipur. A quick check with the judges. Do you have access to the scoring sheet, sirs?
Yes, I'm
Yes.
fine.
Great. So if the team is ready to present, please share your screen. Are we good to go?
Yes, sir, we are ready.
All right. Team from Maharana Mewar Public School, Udaipur, all the best. Your 5 minutes start now.
Creativity is making marvelous out of discarded. Greetings to everyone. Today we are going to present our idea about the authentic bloom. Every day, thousands of people go to religious places and offer flowers, garlands, coconuts, chunris, and chadars to the deities. But does anyone think what happens next? Every year, around 80 lakh tons of religious waste is being dumped in the water bodies, making a chaos in the fragile atmosphere and thus creating enormous water pollution. Also, the trends of using floral decorations in weddings and other ceremonies is increasing day by day. That ultimately results in pollution. These wastes have an enormous potential of being turned into wealth. This is exactly what the Authentic Bloom Waste Management Project is thinking about. Our vision is to create eco-friendly products by reusing the waste materials after collecting them from all the religious places and wedding ceremonies, especially in small cities where people are still waiting for waste management projects. The flowers will be our first concern. We will dry the flowers before storing them to prevent them from decaying. Other materials can be easily stored as they are antifungal and do not get spoiled easily.
We will be creating an application to sell our products directly to our customers. Categorization will be done so that the customers find their desired products easily. We will be collaborating with designers too. Our app will have a special feature called the Pick and Customize option, which enables the user to select decorative items as per the suggestions given by our designer to them according to their houses. The categorization of our products will be as follows: interior decoration, apparels, religious products, garden articles, and household items. That includes a wide variety of products, from soaps and incense sticks to biodegradable chairs and tie and dyes. Everything's available on our app. In future, we would also plan to start exporting our products to other countries because of high quality of our products. For example, we will be exporting insulating tiles in the cold regions where it has a high demand. Also, we can export the tie and dye clothes as they have high demand in the European Union.
Our clients will be the people who are conscious about the environment. We are supposing to get more and more clients as our products are eco-friendly. We would also sell our products to the small-scale shopkeepers and people who have shops outside religious places.
Good marketing makes the company look good. Businesses that have a documented marketing strategy are 538% more likely to report success than a business that don't have one. So our company's major marketing strategies would be first, retargeting strategy. In this strategy, we will send regular email to users who have once visited our site and make it very difficult for the users to forget about the left behind purchase. Cold calling will be a method of contacting unaware users who have not shown interest in our products yet. As you know, we will also be developing an application and a website for our users' comfort with many special features, and also launch our products on online shopping apps like Amazon, Flipkart, etc. We will introduce our products into the market by making the people believe in our work which we do to clean the religious places, and rivers by doing ad campaigns on social media handles. Other marketing strategies would be trade fairs, TV ads, SEO tool, and bundle marketing.
We have a lot of competition too, but our products are much more attractive and creative than our competitors. While other organizations work only on floral waste, we on The Authentic Bloom utilize coconuts, chunris, and chadars as well. Most of our competitors have established themselves in bigger cities, whereas we will be doing it in small cities or rural areas to reach the needy. We also provide furniture and interior to our clients for their homes or workplace, that too with amazing features on our app. This is how we ensure that clients will buy the products from us and not from our competitors. According to our conservative estimates, The Authentic Bloom is going to maintain a healthy financial position in the upcoming years. Our seed capital will be 16.22 lakhs and our payback period will be 10 to 11 months. We expect our profit margin to be 20% of the total goods sold. We will also earn through the pay-per-click commission from the ads on our app.
Now comes the impact. We aspire to reduce waste from all religious places and wedding events. Our products are eco-friendly and reduce pollution. It is also helpful in reducing carbon footprints. Since our products are organic and do not harm the health of our customers, at the same time ensures the safety of our employees. We plan to employ rural women to work with us, which ultimately decrease the unemployment in the area we will work. This is not only about switching decent jobs and wages, but also as women from different backgrounds work and sit together, it will establish dignity, respect, and equality among them.
Thank you for lending your ears.
Thank you so much. That was just 5 minutes. I will now request judges to ask the team any questions you may have.
May I go first, Subhayu?
Yes, sir, please.
Since I have asked all the questions in the previous rounds, I'm going to ask each team one question that is not directly related to the topic. I just want to ask you one question, team Maharana Pratap School. What is the one biggest challenge that you face in your enterprise? One.
Competition. We have a lot of other companies doing work on floral waste. So competition is our big challenge.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, this is Amit. Thanks for the presentation. My question is in terms of the marketing part, how do you talked about sort of having an online platform, but given the number of competitors out there, how do you sort of plan a more focused marketing approach?
So as we discussed in our marketing strategies, sir, as there is a lot of competition, we know, so we have developed some special features, like we have in our app, we have developed many more special features to comfort our users, like we can customize options and the users will be attracted by that. And we will be focusing on the users that are more likely to buy our product. So we will be calling them by cold calling, and we also have B2B and B2C marketing strategies in our company.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, quick question. Would you be having some standard products or all products will be customized?
We will be having some standard products as well, like incense sticks, soaps, and rugs and carpets.
Okay.
And these products can also be customized according to the clients.
Yeah, thanks. Got it.
Thank you, judges. Thank you for those questions. I am requesting you to please put in the scores in the score sheet as we go along. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, by now you know the drill. Some people were asking before, you have 60 seconds today to let us know what you think of the performance of the Maharana Mewar Public School team. You have the polls open in front of you. You can rate the team's performance 5 on 20, 10 on 20, 15 on 20, or 20 on 20. Remember, today you only have 60 seconds as opposed to the 90 seconds you enjoy on other days. So you'll have to be a little quicker with your votes. About halfway in, and I can see that about 48% of people have voted. Let's see if we can get everybody to vote. The last 10 seconds. And that's time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for letting us know what you thought of the team's performance. It is now time to move on to the next school. The Air Force School, Subrata Park, New Delhi. The team from the Air Force School, could you please switch on your cameras? I would request the other teams to keep your cameras off at this point. You can share your screen whenever you're ready. I cannot see a screen yet.
Sir, just a second.
Sure, not a problem. So this is the Air Force School, Subrata Park, Delhi Cantonment from New Delhi. I am sure a lot of you or your classmates are coming from families where you have service people in the armed forces. And if those parents are on this platform and listening in today, all of us, Notebook, on behalf of every single one of the 1,020 plus people here, thank you for your service. And a very happy Independence Day to all of you and us. Well, I can see the title slide. Let me know when the team is good to go, and I shall start the timer.
Yes, sir. You can start the timer now.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
All right. Team from the Air Force School, Subrata Park, New Delhi. All the best. Your 5 minutes on the clock starts now.
Happy Independence to the esteemed judges and one and all present here. Jim Halpert once said, "Right now, this is a job. If I advance any higher, it would be my career." Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. After months of brainstorming and late night coffees, we bring you to VCreate, a company for you wherever you are. We have developed a sustainable product to address the issue of inclusion and diversity towards the visually impaired.
So now let's have an overview of what we understood in the first two rounds. Coming to the problem, did you know around 49.1 million people around the globe are blind and only 10% of the students receive any kind of education? So to this, we propose to you Ikshana, the touch sensory device, a device created to enhance practical knowledge for the blind. This is how the Ikshana device looks and how the pins will rise to form an object. This is a short video of how the pins will rise. So now, how will the device actually work? The teacher will select the square option, for example, on the screen, and through wireless connection, the impression of a square will be formed on the device. Now let's see who are the existing devices in the world. For example, number one, tactile flashcards, which cannot show complex diagrams or cannot be customized. Number two, the Braille ebook, which is produced on a small scale due to its expensiveness. Now coming to why is our device better than any other device? Number one, we provide them with inclusive education through which blind people can admit themselves into any normal school. Number two, we provide them with freedom and flexibility in our device. Number three, we are a sustainable company about which we will discuss in the next few slides. We will also provide our customers with workshops. Number five, because VCreR is not just a company but a family, so we will be very transparent to our customers. Number six, we will have diversity in our products. Now let's move on to our business strategy. Number one, we will invest in the project. Then we will outsource the manufacturing, and the software development will be in-house, followed by introducing the product to the market. Coming to who do we feel are our buyers? Number one, the Sight Savers. Number two, a blind school in Uttar Pradesh, that is Jeevan Jyoti School. Number three, a Blind Relief Association. Now let's look at our marketing strategy. Number one, we will partner up with Amazon and Flipkart. Also, Amazon has a different page for innovations like these. Number two, we will also open up our different stores in different cities, which will market our product. Number three, advertisements like posters, hoardings, radio, TV ads will add up to it. Number four, we will also partner up with big companies and give our customers workshops.
As we all know, the completion of SDGs is just 9 years away. Therefore, our company saw it fit to give our part towards the environment. We are fulfilling 4 of the SDGs that are present. First one being quality education. My consortiate already talked about inclusive education, and that is how we're taking that particular box. Moving on to industry, innovation, and infrastructure. We will ensure that we are giving new job opportunities to the unemployed. We are contributing to the technological progress of the society, the economical development, and we're also benefiting the environmental changes. Then we have decent work and economic growth. We will ensure that our employees get the remuneration that they deserve and that there is a trained HR group that can make our employees feel safe. Lastly, we will ensure that we're helping the life on land live peacefully by not using any single-use plastic and using recycled paper.
Now let's look at the finance department of our company. In this section, I will be explaining the cost of production, the expenditure, and the profits that we make. After doing thorough research and calculations, these are the estimated costs that we have come to. Now you can see the cost price of a single device is itself 12,000 rupees. Hence, we will be selling a single unit of Ikshana for 20,000 rupees. Now, we plan on selling 100 devices of Ikshana in the first year and to increase the sales by 20% in the years that follow. This makes our profit increase from 3 lakhs in the first year to 6.6 lakhs in the third year. And that too will increase exponentially as the time increases. Thank you so much for watching our presentation. We hope you liked it.
Thank you so much, the team from the Air Force School, Subrata Park, Delhi Cantonment. I would now request the judges to ask any questions you might have.
Well done, Subrata. Air Force Central School, Subrata Park. One question is, don't you find the cost per unit rather high? Would these people be able to afford it?
Yes, our cost isn't that high because we don't aim to sell it to every other normal family who have a visually impaired person in their family. We plan to sell it to institutions. And institutions which have blind people or NGOs, they have more funding than normal schools, and normal schools today spend 80,000 to 90,000 on a single microscope to keep it in their biology labs. So we thought that 20,000 is a accurate price, and in those 20,000 we have to cover our profits, the investors' percentage, and our own wages.
Thank you very much. Well answered.
Hi, this is Amit. Thanks for the presentation. My question is, tell me more about the technology that is used.
Yes, sir. The technology that is used is that there will be, for example, in a device, there will be 100 pins. And those, when the teacher selects an option that I want to show a circle to my students, she will select the circle and a circle will rise up as the pins, and then the blind student can feel and know what a circle feels like. We can also upgrade these devices to be used in engineering. For an engineering student, the teacher will show how a machine would work, how the buttons would feel like, because for blind people, there is no machinery which tells them that how a machine looks like. So in that way, those pins would rise to create the shape of the button or the machine, and then it would work like that.
Thank you.
So interesting idea. This device, would it be useful only to learn shapes and or for any other kind of learning?
Sir, in the initial time, this device, when the prototype is produced, it would show normal shapes and some complex figures, but it can be used in many ways. For example, if we create a larger device, if we create a device of, for example, 5 feet long, it could be used in medical surgery too, for a blind doctor who wants to become a surgeon for him to perform rather than on a human body. So that not many bodies are put into his training, and we put this device into it, and it can be used in many other fields too.
Okay, thank you.
Well, judges, thank you so much for those questions. Audience, this is where you get to have your say. The poll for the Airforce School, Subrata Park, New Delhi is up on your screen now. You have 60 seconds to let us know what you thought about that idea. Remember, you have 60 seconds to vote, of which 15 seconds are already over. Halfway through, I know the judges are putting in their scores. And about 40 seconds in, we've had 56% of the people voting. The rest of you do have your say. This is where you get to tell us what you thought about this idea from the Airforce School, Subrata Park, New Delhi. The last few seconds before we close the polls, would request the next team to also start getting ready. And that's time. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for those votes. The team from the Airforce School, before we leave, I would request you to please introduce yourselves because I skipped that part in the beginning of your presentation.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Shan Nanda. I'm a medical student studying in the Airforce School, New Delhi, Delhi Cant.
Good evening, everybody. This is Prisha Jain from the Airforce School. I study in the 11th standard and from the science stream, non-medical. And it is hoped that you and your dear and near ones are safe at home.
Good evening, everybody. Happy Independence Day. This is Aditri Sahani. I'm also from the medical section.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Aditi Parikh, studying in 10th grade of the Airforce School, Subrata Park. We hope you liked our presentation.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Deep Prem Kaushik from the Airforce School, and I'm currently in 11th grade studying non-medical. And to all those people out here, a very happy Independence Day.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, team from the Airforce School, Subrata Park, New Delhi. Until and unless you introduce yourselves, it gets so very easy to forget that you are school students.